Hey everyone, welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Chris Ashley, and it's really great to be back with you today. So I've been promoting my book, as you might know if you've been a listener for a while. It's called Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. And as a part of that, I've been a guest on a bunch of other podcasts. My publisher told me to get on as many podcasts as possible. I've been able to be a guest on some really great ones, which has been really, really exciting, really rewarding. And I was a guest on a show this morning. Loved it. The host was awesome. The conversation was awesome. But the host made a comment to me, and it really made me think. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot anyway. And I wanted to address it on this podcast today. I thought it might really help a lot of people. So I was talking about the law of attraction and belief systems and how there's so much more to life than what we perceive with our five senses. There's so much going on in the universe. You know, everything is so big. And as humans, we tend to get really stuck in this little tunnel vision of work, money, entertainment, sleep, eat. And a lot of times people don't stop and pause and really ponder the bigger questions like, why are we here? What's our purpose? Because if you think about it, the same life force, the same energy, the same being, whatever you want to call it, that made the trees and the planets and the oceans and dolphins and dogs also decided that there needed to be one of you too, right? You are here for a purpose. You are special. And if you were missing, the world would be missing something, right? Your unique energy brings something special to the world. And I was talking about all of this. And when I was done, she said something along the lines of, yeah, I think some of our listeners would think that's really woo-woo and kind of out there. Like, let me kind of bring it down to earth. And she talked about, because the whole conversation started we were talking about trauma, because if you've been listening to me for a while, I had a lot of trauma in my past, and that's what led to my spiritual awakening. And she was like, sometimes it just takes courage to walk out the front door. And, she was awesome. I freaking love her. I cannot wait to share this episode with you. And I'm actually going to go back on her show and talk some more, and I can't wait. And I'm so glad that she said that. So, so grateful, because it made me think for a moment while she was talking that, yeah, I talk a lot about the spiritual side of it. I talk a lot about the spiritual side of it in my content that I share on this podcast, on all of my social media, especially in my book. I talk a lot about it. But the law of attraction is one side of a four-sided coin, if there's such a thing as a four-sided coin. Maybe it's more like a dice. I don't know. Four-sided dice. But there's other ways to explain all of these things that I talk about that are very real, very concrete, very down to earth, very scientific and biological. And I went on to explain that in her show, and she was just like loving it. And I had this aha moment that I was like, I don't want to isolate anyone. I don't want to alienate anyone, because they can't get past the spiritual aspect, because what I'm teaching is so important. It is so universal. It is about the human experience. It's for anyone that's ever gone through trauma, anyone that's ever wondered what else there is, who knows there's more to life, right? That there's something there. They don't know what it is, but they know they're capable of more, right? They want to have more impact on the world, more loving connections, more wealth, more happiness, more joy, right? More health, more vitality. And I'd hate to alienate a lot of people from some really amazing lessons just because they can't get past the spiritual side. So I explained all this to her, and I want to explain it to you too, because I think it's really important. So I said it's four sides of the same coin. So I kind of think of it as law of attraction is one, quantum physics is one, the reticular activation system is one, and then I don't know how to categorize the last one, but I'm going to talk about it. Basically, how your body reacts in moments of stress and how that impacts your health and how your thoughts and emotions get stuck in this loop. So, and I really do think it all feeds into each other. It all goes hand in hand. It's just different ways of explaining the same kind of thing. So thank you to this host. If you're listening, you know who you are. And let me start with the easy one. I'll start with the reticular activation system because that is the biological explanation for the law of attraction as far as I'm concerned. So the reticular activation system, or the RAS, is the part of your brain that essentially tells you what to focus on. So if you think about it, we are getting bombarded by trillions of pieces of information constantly hitting our five senses every time we step foot outside. Every time we open our eyes, right? Or we're awake. And if you were to concentrate on all of those trillions of pieces of information at once, you would go crazy. You couldn't do it. So, think about like if you're trying to drive, you're trying to focus on the road and the steering wheel and the brakes, and then you hear birds singing and you hear the pitter patter of dog feet and you see a plane going through the sky, and like it's just everything at once, right? You can't do it. So the RAS is the part of your brain that brings certain pieces of information to the forefront, right? It highlights certain bits. And it does this in the same way the law of attraction does, by what you focused on in the past. So it knows what's important. So it's essentially the biological reason for the law of attraction, right? Because what you focus on becomes your reality, right? And what you focus on with the law of attraction, you start to bring more of into your life. And the RAS brings more of that into the forefront of your life too. So quantum physics, I talk a lot about in my book. And I've talked a lot about it on this show as well. There's a few episodes if you look back. But I will say quantum physics backs up a lot of spirituality. And that's pretty damn cool because that's science, right? And it backs up what mystics and teachers have been saying for a really long time. The many worlds theory of quantum physics talks about how there are countless numbers of parallel realities that are laid on top of ours in the same time and space as ours. And that everything that's made of matter, right, made of particle, or that's made of matter, everything in our universe is actually waves, right? It's not particles. But when we look at it, it appears as a particle. So you can think of it as everything exists on a wave function, right? Which is essentially like a realm or a cloud of possibilities. And when you focus in on something, that wave function collapses. And all that means is that that thing appears as a particle in one time and space only. Now, the many worlds theory posits that every other possibility in that realm or that cloud that the particle could have been exists in another parallel reality. So it's super trippy stuff. It's really cool. The famous double slit experiment teaches that by observing something, consciousness is actually creating it, right? It's actually causing it to happen. The delayed choice experiment in quantum physics tells us that we can actually, what happens in the present can actually affect things that have happened in the past, right? What else? Entanglement tells us that two particles or two pieces of something can be in like light years and light years and light years away, but if they're entangled, they act as though they're one entity. So quantum physics, and there's so many more amazing bits about quantum physics. It's so fascinating. And like I said, it really just backs up all of this stuff that I talk about, which is why I talk about quantum physics a lot in my book. Now, I want to talk about something that I haven't really spoken about today, and that's the more biological aspect of it. And that's kind of what I went on a tangent about on this podcast this morning. So thoughts are the language of your mind, right? And feelings are the language of your body. So every thought that you have creates an emotion that makes you feel the same way that you're thinking, right? If you're thinking angry thoughts, it creates the emotion of anger, and you start to feel angry. Now, this happens whether it's a positive emotion or a negative emotion. And then as you're feeling angry, it makes you create more angry thoughts. So you start to get stuck in this spin cycle where your thoughts feed into your emotions feed into your thoughts, and it keeps getting amplified and keeps getting amplified. Now, this loop can happen for hours. It can happen for days. It can happen for years. It can happen for decades, right? They say that 95% of who you are by the time you're 35 is simply a set of memorized behaviors, thoughts, emotions, habits, attitudes. And it kind of runs like a computer program. And it's this unconscious program that happens. Oftentimes, you don't even realize that you're thinking these angry thoughts and feeling this anger and that it's just feeding into each other. Now, your memories are cemented by emotion. If you think back on your life, the moments that you were maybe bored or nothing really exciting was happening, you don't really have memories of those moments, right? Or just another day of high school or whatever it is. But the big moments, right? The weddings, the proposal, the trauma you've gone through. Maybe you witnessed something really scary, something that got your adrenaline up, the best day at the amusement park with your best friend, whatever it is. Those kind of memories, because they have heightened emotions attached to them, whether positive or negative, those are the things that get cemented in your brain as memories. Those are the ones that you can recall, and it's because they're attached to a heightened emotion. So if your emotions are memories and your thoughts and feelings are in alignment, right, because you're in that loop, then when you're thinking about your past, you are creating more of your past, whether positive or negative. So let's say that you've gone through a stressful life event, right? You had something that caused you debilitating stress in your life, maybe something traumatic. Now, your brain doesn't know the difference between you thinking about that event and you actually experiencing it. So every time you think about it, your body thinks that it's reliving that event. Now, if you are constantly thinking about the past and you're constantly feeling those same emotions, then your body thinks that it is living through that experience that you went through 24/7. So your brain and body essentially relive that experience over and over and over again. Now, you might live for 20 more years, but you live the same year 20 different times. And that's because nothing new is happening. You're stuck in that same loop. You're thinking the same thoughts. You're feeling the same emotions. You're reliving that past experience. And psychologists estimate that 70 to 90% of people's thoughts are negative and repetitive. Now, every time you think about that past experience that you went through, your body is creating the same chemicals, right? The same endorphins, the same dopamine, the same cortisol, the same serotonin, whatever it is. Your body's creating the same chemicals that you experienced when you actually went through the event. So your body literally is reliving it over and over and over again. And you're living in those chemicals of stress. The more you do this, the more you have these thoughts, have these feelings, think about the past, send these chemical signals out to your body, the more it gets hardwired into your body, into your nervous system. And pretty soon it just becomes this unconscious habit, like I was saying, because it's just hardwired in you. Now, meanwhile, these same emotions and repetitive thoughts are attracting more of the same to you, right? Using the law of attraction. So you're not only reliving the past, but you're manifesting more experiences that are on that same frequency of that traumatic thing that you went through, of that emotional thing you went through, of that great thing you went through, right? It doesn't have to just be with trauma, it's anything. Now, emotions like anger, stress, anxiety, guilt, shame, resentment, depression, these are all caused by the hormones of stress in your body. The same stressful hormones, the same stressor hormones create all of these emotions. And when you're in survival mode, you are in full panic, right? And it's in that place there is a gap between the truth and what you are perceiving, because you can't think in that state, right? You're just reacting. You are so strung out. You're so wired up. And when you're in that state of just pure sympathetic nervous state, fight, flight, or freeze, you can see my husband in the background. When you're in that place of fight, flight, or freeze, your senses, like all those hormones are just all those stress hormones are just coursing through your body, and your senses get heightened, your pupils get bigger, your hearing gets amplified, your muscles are ready to run because you're in fight, flight, or freeze, right? Your body is preparing to keep you safe. You are straight up in survival mode. Now, when you're living on the hormones of stress for a long time, your brain starts to go into incoherence. Now, incoherence means that you can actually see this on brain scans, that your brain waves are totally out of sync, right? They're kind of chaotic. There's a lot of disorder. You can think of it like a bunch of different drummers, like all playing different beats, different rhythms at the same time. And when your brain is in coherence, your body's in coherence. So it sends this disintegrated signal to your nervous system. And then your nervous system sends that same signal, that disintegrated signal, that disorderly signal to your cardiovascular system, to your immune system, to your endocrine system, to your digestive system. And you can actually make yourself really, really sick from stress. Now, let me just pause for a moment and talk about brain waves just for a second, because it plays into all this. So there are 4 main brain waves. There's delta, which is when you are fast asleep in deep sleep. There is theta, when you are kind of in that place between sleep. And this is like the deepest level of hypnosis you can be put into. Most hypnotists kind of go more into alpha, but theta is, if you can, and it's deep meditation too, if you can stay awake in that place, you're super relaxed. You can tap into your subconscious. That's where you can reprogram your subconscious. It's great to think about your manifest memoir in that state. It can really help you call amazing things into your life. Now, above theta is alpha. Alpha is super relaxed. So sometimes in hypnosis or meditation, you're in alpha, and you're really, really relaxed. You're calm. You're just kicked back. You're chilling. But you can also be awake in alpha. So throughout our day, we kind of go back and forth between beta and alpha. Because, so beta is when you're paying attention. And then when you're kind of spacing out, you're in alpha. Like if you've ever been driving and all of a sudden you've gone 10 miles and you're like, wow, I don't even remember that, which is terrifying to think that other drivers are in that state. That's because you slipped into alpha. Or if you're listening to a teacher talk and then you space out for 10 minutes and you're like, I have no idea what they said, you kind of slipped into alpha. Now, beta, like I said, is paying attention, but there's 3 levels of beta. There's low beta, mid beta, and high beta. So high beta is full-on panic, full-on stress, like we were just talking about. So when you are in that stressful place that we were talking about a moment ago, in that sympathetic nervous state, when you're in full-on survival mode, full-on panic mode, your brain waves are in high beta. And no new information can come into your nervous system at this time because you are not open to any thought or any emotion that doesn't align and coincide with that stressful thought and emotion that you are already feeling, with that loop that you're already in. It's like it can't even get there. Like, have you ever been having a panic attack and someone's like, calm down? Like, that shit doesn't work, right? Because they can't even penetrate you. So you're freaked out, you're angry, you're panicked, you're emotional, you are just in this high state. Now, if you try to analyze your problems when you're in this state, you are going to drive yourself into even higher beta because you cannot think in this place, right? You only react. You're like an animal in fight, flight, or freeze, right? You are so far gone. You have tunnel vision, you have your senses on high alert, you are just ready to survive. And, that serves us when we're, trying to get out of the way of oncoming traffic, or if a lion is chasing us down, or whatever it is. But humans are not meant to be in that state all the time. They're not meant to be in that state most of the time. But when we've gone through debilitating emotional stress in our life, and that doesn't even have to be a crazy trauma, right? It could just be working in a unhealthy environment, being in an unhealthy relationship that's stressful. So when we're in that state constantly, that's when you start to make yourself sick. All of these stressful things that you've gone through in your life can affect your peace of mind. They can affect your immune system, your health. your ability to move through the world, to live a life that you really love living, to manifest all of the amazing things you want to manifest. Because when you're in that loop, when you're in that sympathetic state and those thoughts feed into the emotions and the emotions feed into the thoughts and you just get more and more amped up, you're not in a place where you can create, right? They say that people who are unhealthy have one goal, while people who are healthy have hundreds of goals, right? And health isn't just physical health. It can be mental and emotional health too. So if you're going to take away any of this, debilitating emotional stress rewires your brain and nervous system. But the good news is that that brain and nervous system of yours can always be reprogrammed. And that's a lot of the work I do, is helping people reprogram all of that. So as you can see, all of these things, that how your thoughts and emotions feed into each other, and your body thinks it's constantly reliving in the past, and it's helping to manifest more of those same things, those same thoughts, those same feelings. You get stuck in this repetitive cycle. The law of attraction makes you manifest more things like that. Quantum physics says that you can call into your life anything you want, right? Every possible future exists out there in this state of rest in quantum physics until you choose it, right? But everything exists. Everything you can imagine and everything you can't, every possible future. So you choose it based on your emotions, your way of being, your thoughts, your beliefs, just like the law of attraction. So if you're constantly stuck in this cycle where you're thinking about the past and reliving all of this stressful things, then that's the future you're choosing with quantum physics. And then again, the reticular activation system brings to the forefront and highlights whatever you're focused on, whatever you've been focused on in the past. So if you're focusing on those negative feelings, that's what it's going to bring in. So you're going to notice all the shit, right? Like a thousand amazing good things can happen in your day, but then you have that one bad thing. What do you focus on? You focus on the one bad thing, because humans are wired that way, right? We're wired for survival. And we, especially women, right? We're wired to look out for danger, to protect our offspring, right? And you know, whether you like that or not, that's our biological wiring. So we notice that one bad thing that happened more than the good things, because we're constantly on the alert and look out for danger. That's just how we're programmed. We're animals. So you can see how all of these things feed into each other. So yes, maybe you might think what I teach when I talk about soul contracts and reincarnation and the law of attraction and ancient aliens and all of this stuff is woo-woo and out there. But this is the other side of the coins, where it's very real. It's very grounded in science, in biology. And also, you know, the other thing that's really great about hearing all this is that when you understand what's going on in your body during those moments of stress, then you can, I don't know, having that knowledge helps you in those moments. It helps you understand what's happening, because I think it increases panic even more when you're like for me, when I have panic attacks, I can't feel my arms, like my hands go numb, and that just amplifies it even more. Or I'll get nauseous, or I'll feel like I can't breathe and I start panicking even more. But when you know what's going on and why it's happening, it just helps, right? That knowledge helps to bring you back down. And by the way, anxiety and excitement are the same emotion. It's just how you interpret it. So you can use that energy to amp you up, or you can use that energy to break you down. And so I do a lot of public speaking. I love speaking in front of crowds. I'm a motivational speaker. I absolutely love it. But sometimes before I go on stage, I'll feel that that kind of heart pounding, like amp up kind of feeling. And it does the same thing as when you're having a panic attack. Your senses heighten, your pupils dilate, more blood goes to your brain, which is great because then you can think quicker on your feet, right? When you're giving a talk. And it's like, you can think of it as, oh my God, my body's freaking out and getting away from me. Or you can think of it as, my body is preparing me to do really well. So I like to think of it that way. This is getting pretty long, so I'm going to end it. Thank you so much for listening. Follow me everywhere. I'm at Change Your Mind with Chris, Chris with a K, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I have my podcast, of course, Change Your Mind with Chris Ashley. My book is called Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It's available in paperback, ebook, audiobook on Amazon, Apple Books, Google Books, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Books A Million. So be sure to pick up a copy. And thank you all so much. I hope to see you soon.